Hello and welcome to Varsity Voices. Lee Adams here, thanking you so much for tuning in again this week to talk MAIS high school football across the entire state of Mississippi, alongside Cooper Sanders, the voice of Leake Academy, Cliff Barker, Tri County Academy's play by play, and Spence Shepard, a former quarterback for the Tri County Rebels as well. We've got a whole lot to talk about here, and it's all brought to you by our friends at C Spire. One team is all you need to stay connected and stay with a very stable connection and get all your scores and highlights with the help of C Spire. They're right in your neighborhood. Find out more at cspire.com. Cliff, I'm going to throw it right to you as we go to the headlines for this week. We have a whole lot to talk about, including Pillow Academy pulling off a huge upset. What do you think about it?
That was one that got all of us. We were all thinking Heritage was going to come in there and put on a show at Pillow, and boy, did the Pillow Academy football team show up and take care of business. I don't think it was ever close. 47-15. Pillow got it done, and I love the headline. Pillow puts Heritage to bed. What are your thoughts on that, Coop?
I like the pun. I like the pun there. But, it's almost one of those things. I wouldn't call it an upset because when you have little small things happen to you and you're upset, it's not that bad. It's just a little upset. This is one of those, like, this could cause a depression. This is something that some people might need therapy over. Like, this is not expected at all. 47-15, an absolute beatdown that shocked all of us.
And Spence, you got a chance to see Pillow at the Jamboree, and I think you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, we watched Pillow. I can't even remember who it was playing at the Tri County Jamboree, and Pillow did not look that great. Of course, their coach could be kind of like Coach Watson with Tri County and just show absolutely nothing. But when you beat a team that handily, that's not an upset by any stretch. If it's a one-score game where there's a turnover here or there that can dictate the game, maybe. But a 47-15, that's no upset.
Another headline is Prep versus Prep. We had Mississippi Prep against Alabama Prep. I was wondering what that UMS-Wright stood for. It's University Military School, and it dates all the way back to 1893 when a Dr. Wright started the school. Then they had a co-ed school. Back in the 20s, they opened up the girls' preparatory school, and then they combined them in 1988, and that's how we got UMS-Wright, Jackson Prep's opponent on Friday night, and Jackson Prep came out like gangbusters with a 28-0 lead before UMS-Wright really got back into it and made a game of it. Ended up losing only by 7 points, but Jackson Prep with a very dominating performance led by running backs Wade Smith and Heron Goodwin, both over 100 yards. Smith with 3 touchdowns and Essery 7 out of 15 throwing the ball for over 100 yards. And Jackson Prep starts out with a great victory on their home field in Flowood. And let's talk about somebody who might be back in the headlines soon from Meridian. Cooper Sanders, what are you hearing about this big impact quarterback that we didn't think would be playing this year?
Yeah, I heard about this last week. Started hearing the rumors swirling around from people that I know, and Sullivan Reed is back out there for Lamar, and that completely changes the game. Now, I heard about this, and we discussed it in our group chat. We could have gone out there and broke this story and talked about it, but hey, we wanted to let him go out there and play the game because this is a kid, man. This kid's in high school. He's a great athlete, and didn't want to break that story about him, unlike some people would. But man, it's awesome. Now it's public knowledge. He was out there Friday night dressed. He did not play. They put a beat down on Winston Academy, and he's got to get back and earn his spot back. Which, hey, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what Vowell's got in that quarterback battle, and if that'll turn Vowell into a competitor because now he has to compete with Sullivan Reed for that starting job. Reed, a really, really talented quarterback, and if Vowell does somehow beat him out, that means Lamar has even more in store for them. But Sullivan Reed coming back as the starting quarterback would absolutely just change the game in MAIS 3A because he is a talented player and he is going to make some big plays and add a lot to that Lamar squad.
This segment of the show brought to you by Rick's Pro Truck, the same folks that help you make a statement with your truck for decades. Also help you keep that truck secure with the new and improved Retrax bed cover. Get by Rick's Pro Truck at Lakeland Drive in Flowood. I was in there this week looking around, and they're also located at Calhoun Station Parkway up there in Gluckstadt. And as we move along, we'll look at the scores. First from 1A from Friday night, fellas. Let's start with you, Cliff, about Marville's big win in a great tight football game, 30-26.
Yeah, that one surprised me a little bit, but the next one's the one that really jumped out at me. Columbus Christian was picked to be a dominant squad this year, and just a one-score victory over North Sunflower Academy. That surprised me a little bit. And then a couple more down there. Porter's Chapel put up 50 on Claiborne. So Porter's Chapel bringing out the offense this year as well. And then down at the bottom, those two games that we focused on as our picks this week, Humphreys dominating Newton Academy and Tunica breaking the hearts of the Raiders over at Benton. Benton had a big game in week 1, and Tunica came ready to play and put up 56 points on the Raiders.
Yeah, an absolute beatdown in both of those games of the week. Did not expect Humphreys to beat Newton like that. I knew it was going to be a close game, but oh my gosh, that was a beatdown right there.
And you talk about a headline or a shocker is Centerville losing to Central Hines there. You see that one, 35-7. That raised a couple of eyebrows on my head at least.
Yeah, some very competitive games over in 2A. That Bio versus Greenville St. Joe, two Delta schools up there, kind of battling for pride up there in the Delta, in a 3-point contest. Bio came out on top in that game. But, yeah, that Central Hines Centerville score was a big surprise for me. I know there's no more Coach Hurst, but I really felt like Centerville would pull up a better fight than that. But I did have a discussion this week with an official friend of mine that was on the crew for that game at Central Hines the other night, and he said Central Hines was extremely impressive. He said Schuff looked great, and he said from top to bottom that Central Hines crew looked very good.
Yeah, I think
only able to muster one touchdown, and then we see a couple of shutouts there with Regents and the Tri-County big win over Canton Academy. Both those scores of 42-0. And, of course, Cliff Barker, you were there to witness the Panthers of Canton Academy losing to Tri-County.
Yeah, Spence and I were on the call for that game the other night, and I put it here in 2A purposely because I felt like it was more important. The Canton loss was bigger than what the Tri-County would have been up in 3A. But Tri-County's new quarterback, Brady Busby, did some really good things. He made some mistakes as well, and he's got some things to build on. But I thought he looked great overall. I thought he made some really smart plays. But what's impressive about the Rebels and what people are going to be talking about this year is that Tri-County defense. They've had good defense for years and years, but that defense is about as fast as I've ever seen over in Flora. Wouldn't you agree, Spence?
Yeah, and extremely physical also. And that's kind of a staple for the Rebel football team is always going to be the defense. Pretty stingy, pretty tight, and hard to score on.
And this portion of our podcast brought to you by Pine Straw America. If you want to watch football and not have to worry about getting out in the yard and doing all that kind of maintenance all season long, let Pine Straw America take care of it for you, where quality, luxury, and curb appeal all meet together. And back to the scoreboard from this past Friday night. Leake Academy with a big win over Simpson Academy, and of course our own Cooper Sanders there to witness that one.
Yeah, it was off to a slow start in that ball game. After the JA game, which was 35-20 in the first quarter, Leake and Simpson, they were scoreless in the first quarter completely. So, it was a much, much different flow to the game. Me and Coach Morgan looked at our watches, looked at the time after the first quarter, and we're like, hey, it's not 8:15 like it was last week. And yeah, Simpson, they got off to a slow start, but the strong start defensively. Leake went out there, finally got some scores in, went up 14-6. And after that, Simpson just really couldn't do anything. Simpson would get in the red zone and they'd turn the ball over. They would create mistakes. They would have a chance and then they'd make mistakes. You see, it's a team. They have a lot of things that can go for them. They just have to finish better. Simpson, they're going to be a decent team in 4A. I think they have a chance. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near the Division I playoffs. I don't think they'll be in the Division II playoffs, but I think, they could, or they do. They canceled out Division III and 4A this year, didn't they?
I'm not sure.
I think they did.
Okay, so I think they might be near the bottom of that bracket in Division II for 4A, but they're still going to be a talented team. They have a lot of things to work out. Coach Mangum, he's an incredible coach, legendary coach of this state. He's going to be able to work with these guys, and they're going to get a lot better. They just have to finish, and they have to stop making mistakes. But you know what, guys? It's early on in the season. Mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah, and a couple of big wins: Starkville 42, Marshall 17, Rossville 45, Middleton 18. But the scores that jumped out at me, that battle between Columbia and Wayne, just a 2-point game down there, 23-21. And then the other big one, the game that was played Saturday due to some weather issues, Brookhaven 28, Bowling Green 21. I know a lot of us felt like that Bowling Green was probably the favorite in that game. Brookhaven may be a little bit down this year, but Brookhaven took that seriously and came out and took care of business against Bowling Green.
I actually got to talk to Coach Ross about that today, and Brookhaven, as well as Jackson Academy. A couple of teams had their games altered by the weather. A tree fell across the interstate near Brookhaven, Mississippi, and made Oak Forest about 45 minutes late arriving at Jackson Academy. And Coach Ross tells me at Brookhaven the night before it was already getting flooded at the Cougar Field in Brookhaven, and that's why they had to play the game on a Saturday up at Colin in Wesson, Mississippi. But Brookhaven, again, they impressed me and had the wrong pick on that one, as Brookhaven gets the win over Bowling Green, a team that had already gotten a victory in week 1, trying to improve to a 2-0, and they couldn't do it. That has to rattle a player to think they are all ready to go play football on Friday night, and then they have to have it be moved at the last minute, and then you probably don't have the same edge you had when you were ready to play on Friday night. It had to be some kind of letdown, having to move and play on a field you had no idea you'd be playing on that week.
Yep, no doubt. And Cooper, you had some thoughts on the Cathedral St. Al game, and we also had Silliman 14, ACCS 7.
Yeah, Cathedral and St. Al. Cathedral just dominant in that game. And, St. Al, they're doing a little bit better offensively, it seems. They're getting a lot more chances to go out there on offense with the points they're giving up. But, hey, I mean, they're getting points on the board, and they're getting a lot better out there. And Silliman, ACCS, that's a good game right there. ACCS, I think some people were starting to think they're down this year, but ACCS still has a lot of talent on the team. I think Silliman, I've talked about before, I think Silliman can be a dark horse in 3. I think Silliman's got a lot of talent. One of those Louisiana teams, they dropped down from 4A down to 3A. They've been successful in the past. I think ACCS is still a really good ball club. I think this is just Silliman starting to sneak in there is a possible contender.
Yeah, Spence, my thought on that is you and I have seen ACCS play many times in a David King coached ball club. Does it surprise you as much as it does me to only see 7 points on the scoreboard?
It really does, because Coach King has athletes all over the field every time I've ever seen them play. So yeah, that really does surprise me. But who was the quarterback they lost a couple of years ago?
Yeah, had been started 3 or 4 years down there.
4 years, yeah. And when you lose a kid like that, man, it does really hurt your offense. And also I was going to say St. Al, isn't John Baker at St. Al now?
That is correct. That's correct. He left St. Joe and went to St. Al.
Yep, left Greenville St. Joe and came to St. Al. So he will have some athletes on the field. He may not this year, but he will have.
We want you to stay tuned. We'll be talking about 4A football. Well, right now we'll be talking about 4A football. There were a lot of huge games, and we have some highlights to show you in a few moments of the Hartfield-Greenville, Washington game. But there you see Capaya, the Colonels, getting out of the gate with a big 35-7 win over Madison St. Joe. And Cliff, that was a pretty easy victory for those Colonels, wasn't it?
It was. The Colonels took care of business. That we've already talked about that Pillow Heritage game at length, but I'm going to jump down to this third game because I think all of us probably have thoughts on this. The Battle of the Davises, Hayden Davis versus Herbert Davis. Of course, Herbert Davis, the coach over at MRA, and his son, the offensive coordinator up at Ravenwood. And it was the youngster getting the better of the old man, 29-14 in this matchup.
He knew all his tricks. He knew all his secrets.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a bragging rights. Probably walked over there after the game and patted his dad on the head, sunned him a little bit. Just got to show him who was boss, and his dad might have grounded him for that. His dad's not going to let that go. So if these two teams face again, his dad's going to be coming back with vengeance.
Hey, Cooper,
Jackson Prep we already talked about, and I wanted to give a shout out to my great nephew who put on a high school jersey for the first time for Jackson Prep this past Friday night. Number 57 would be Dalton Linsky, a 170-pound defensive lineman. Proud to see him out there on the field, and that Jackson Prep went out there and got a big victory to start out the season. Last year they had to replace every starter on Jackson Prep. But this year they had 15 returning starters, and they looked really good against UMS-Wright.
Yeah, let's hop back 1 second to MRA. Spence, you had a thought on MRA and Ravenwood?
Yeah, I was just going to say that was the second year in a row that Hayden had beat his dad on the field. And last year, like Cooper was saying, it was a big old hug and real sincere and all that. And this year I watched them on the live stream, and it wasn't all that. It was kind of like all right, get out of my face. This is getting old.
Well, who was Mama pulling for?
I bet I know.
Yeah, I know who my wife would pull for.
It wouldn't be you, would it?
It would not be me.
Yeah, we all picked Park Lane over Gulf Shores, and we all had to eat a little bit of crow on that one as Mark Hudspeth and that Gulf Shores crew took care of business. JA, boy, they took care of business over at Oak Forest. But here's the team that might surprise some people this year. After years of struggle, East Rankin has a legit running back this year and put up 50 on Acadiana.
Well, before we gloss over JA too much, there's the defending 4A state champion, and it's 2 weeks into the season. They've already scored 100 points. Is that any good? What do you think?
They can be all right. And they've given up 40 through 2 games.
And I think they gave up all 40 to one particular team, Cooper.
Yeah, I think that defense is a little mad. I think they saw on social media people saying, JA's defense is down. JA's defense is going to hold them back this year. JA's defense is awful. The defense heard that, and they showed that hey, we weren't going to let that happen again.
Yeah, but back to that East Rankin game, the Patriots putting up 50. That impressed me. That really jumped out at me for that East Rankin team to put together that kind of offensive performance.
Yeah. ERA being at 50 was probably the one time that I pitched in Little League was the only other time that I remember ERA being at 50.
Yeah.
Acadiana is a fun name to say there, but they could only score 12 against East Rankin in week number 1. And as we move along, we've already thanked our friends at Pine Straw America to help keep your lawn in perfect condition, and you don't have to worry about it or lift a finger. Try Pine Straw America. And now we've got some highlights to show you of Hartfield taking on Greenville, Washington. In Flowood, they have a theme. Defend the Pines, and here's Elliott trying to hit Luke Wesson. The senior couldn't hang on to it, but now we have McIntyre fumbling right as he gets to the goal line. Some people thought it was a touchdown. It's 7-0 Washington, and here's a scramble and a pass completed to McIntyre, who had 3 touchdowns on the night, including this one to tie the game up at 7 as Hartfield went on to score 34 unanswered points and win this one by a final score of 41-13. Hartsfield, a team that's been in the state championship game each of the last 3 years with 2 championships. They're off to a good start, even though they started a little bit slow in the game against Greenville, Washington. They got a big blowout win finally after about 2 quarters of football. They really got it in gear. And this part of the show brought to you by Lighthouse Limo Service. You know, there's a lot of fun things to do on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Jackson Academy is going to be down there to play Picayune in a couple of weeks, and there's always the beach. There's always great seafood, and you might need a ride late at night. Call Lighthouse Limo at 228-797-LIMO. That's 228-797-LIMO. Ride in style next time you visit the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And now,
Lee, I gotta ask that fumble
performances.
Lee, I gotta ask that fumble. They did rule that a fumble, correct?
That was a fumble, a turnover, just as Heritage thought they were going to tie the game. It went back the other way, and Washington had scored on a 97-yard run to take a 7-0 lead, and it got the attention of Hartfield, but it took them a while to start moving the football. And you see there, Colin McIntyre finished the night with 136 yards on 24 carries, and we just showed you one of his 3 touchdowns on the night. But that one that he fumbled at the goal line was not one of those 3 touchdowns that counted on the scoreboard, but it was very close. And there you see Cade Hunt from Tri-County Academy having a big night, didn't he, Cliff?
He did. He looked solid. He showed us something we haven't seen before. He was a kid that backed up his older brother last year at running back, but his running style, and I'll let Spence explain this a little better, I feel like it changed extensively from last year to this year.
Yeah, last year his older brother Hayden was kind of the guy outside the tackles to try to get the edge and outrun people. Cade was kind of the guy inside the tackles, and honestly, I think you felt the same way, Cliff. We thought they were better at what they were doing. Cade in between the tackles, Hayden outside the tackles. This year, this Friday night, Cade showed a speed that we haven't seen yet, and I mean, like, he was outrunning people to the edge with angles, down the field with angles. Looked extremely fast. Kid's gotten big. He's probably 6 foot, 185, 190 now, and man, he is really running hard and running fast.
And he looked good. He's fitting the bill out of the box, but the other one that's fitting the bill out of the box is our buddy Cooper, your quarterback up there at Leake, Major Chandler. Another big passing performance in week 2 for Chandler.
Yeah, I mean, he was absolutely spinning it. He's got almost 600 yards. He's like 4 yards shy of 600 yards, and that is through 2 football games. I mean, I did that math completely wrong. Almost 700 yards. Almost 700 yards through 2 football games. I mean, he's absolutely just spinning it out there. He is playing phenomenal, and he started running it a little bit the other night too. He didn't really run to the outside. He had some quarterback draw plays that he would run, and 2 different plays he would dive to the end zone. But hey, he got the run game going. So he finally got tackled for the first time the other night because he was not tackled against JA. But man, he is absolutely chunking the football right now.
We got 3 more quarterbacks on that list too. As you go down that second column, Sil Santucci up at Starkville, Brandon Overstreet at Magnolia Heights, and Jack Teasley at Capaya. Now Santucci only 177 yards and not that great of a pass completion percentage, just 8 for 15, but 4 of those 8 completions, and that's easy math, 50% of his completions were good for touchdowns.
Well, you want to talk about a top performance. I know Mississippi has the best high school football in the nation, but I learned about a running back up in Wisconsin, you guys. Friday night, he had more than 450 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns in one game. We wanted to give him a little shout out because that's not too often you hear of one player scoring more than 40 of his team's points and rushing for that many yards in one football game. He had a season in one night.
And you got a lot of guys on this week 2 performer list as well with multiple touchdowns. Overstreet 3 touchdowns, Teasley 3 touchdowns, Colin McIntyre from Hartfield Academy 3 touchdowns, Easton Page up at Leake 2 touchdowns, Garrett Adcock 3 rush touchdowns as well, and then John Hudson Bates over at Tri-County 125 receiving yards on only 2 receptions. One of those was a 70-yard touchdown as well. And then our one lone solid defensive performer, Jimmy Washburn, a linebacker over at Tri-County with 10 tackles. Cooper and Spence, you got any thoughts on some of those guys?
Well, also, I will say, I just noticed the Garrett Adcock stat did get thrown off a little bit, not to take away from him. He did have 150 yards on the ground, but he didn't have a touchdown, so I don't know how that got on there wrong. Just some formatting issue, but I apologize for that. But still, 150 yards rushing is a big game. But yeah, John Hudson Bates, that's a big game. 125 yards. Anytime you have over 100 yards receiving, that's going to be huge. But like I said, Easton Page, 217 of Major Chandler's 294 yards. I mean, that's back-to-back 200-yard receiving games for Easton Page. I think by the end of the year, he's going to be leading the MAIS in receiving yards because he's got a really good head start. But shout out Jimmy Washburn, 10 tackles. That's a big game for Tri-County.
Hey, I'm sure Leake had 2 more receivers, maybe 3 more receivers that had as good a stats as John Hudson Bates. They just didn't make it, huh?
No one's figured out a way to cover Easton Page. He is really lighting it up. Are we going to single out one person to be the top performance?
Yeah, that's coming up later. We'll get.
Yes,
we'll
we
get
have
around
that later. It's coming up later.
All right, we'll save it. Stay tuned. Genuine Mississippi. If you want something that is created, grown, raised right here in Mississippi, handcrafted, visit the website. It's genuinems.com. Genuinems.com. As Varsity Voices rolls along and we get a little bit closer to week 2 and the games to watch and the pick'em results are coming up. There are some big games coming up this Friday night, and we're going to look at how we did picking winners and losers last week.
Yeah,
None
before I
of
roll,
us exactly set the world on fire.
No, before I roll to this next slide, I'm going to say all of us. Spence, thank goodness you hadn't made a pick yet because you're still 100%. But all of us have got a failing grade in week 1, and I've got it lined out. We'll go through and look at it game by game. But in 1A, we picked these 2 games: Tunica Benton and Humphreys Newton County. Tunica, of course, 56-36 over Benton. Humphreys 42. Newton 8. And Cooper, you ready?
No.
Yeah, these are ugly. These are our picks from last week and the results. Of course, the red would be losses, the green would be wins. And Lee and I somehow backed up and lucked into 1. But wow, 1A was tough on the pickers in week 1.
Well,
yeah, I didn't like that, Cliff. I don't know why we're showing this right now.
Well, we got
have to be on there.
the bad news. The bad news is
But
you got 3 more of these to go, and it doesn't really get any better.
I'd say it does. Well, there's one point it gets better, but hey, man,
Okay.
you know what? It's okay.
All right, are we ready?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, are we ready to move on from 1A, or we got any other
We
thoughts
are.
on 1A?
We are. We can move on, Cliff. We can move on. It's okay.
All right, so here comes 2A. We've got Bayou 26, Greenville St. Joe 23, Lamar. Holy cow, taking care of business against Winston, 41-0. I think we did a little better on this slide. I only see 1 missed pick there. Bayou and Lamar carried the weight this week. Cooper, I can't blame you for the St. Joe pick. That was a toss-up to me as well. And with it being a 3-point game, that was a tough one to take.
Yeah, just the luck of the Irish did not kick in, and they got it down there in the Bayou. But hey, Lamar, I got that pick right. No disrespect to Winston Academy, but Lamar did win that football game very handily.
Anybody with any more thoughts on 2A before we move along to 3A?
let's go.
Now, the
Brookhaven.
big one.
I didn't pick them, and couldn't have been more wrong as Brookhaven went out there and defeated Bowling Green. We
Did
talked a little
anybody
bit
pick
about-
Brookhaven, or was it everybody Bowling
No,
Green?
somebody
I think
picked
we had
Brookhaven.
one.
We had
Yeah,
one.
we had one on Brookhaven.
And then the big one, Columbia and Wayne, big matchup down there. And, there's some big athletes over there at Columbia, some good ones at Wayne as well. And I bet that was a battle, 23-21. Let's take a look at how the picks went in 3A.
Oh, look, somebody did pick Brookhaven.
Yeah, like you didn't know, right? Yeah, that Bowling Green. I was really high on Bowling Green after week 1, and all I could think about all week as I got these things back together is maybe it's making excuses, but wow, man, week 1's tough because you think you know what people have, and it turns out you don't always know. And then some of those tight games like that, a 2-point game, that's basically a toss-up, so a tough game to call. Okay, now here's the one that none of us want to turn to. Gulf Shores 31, Park Lane 20, Pillow 47, Heritage 45. Spence, you ready for this one? Since you're not on it.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Ofer. Nobody.
Yikes. That's what kept me from having a winning week. And the Park Lane Pioneers, there were several times during that game when they really could have let it get out of hand. They were down 14 a couple times and always got back to within 7. Then in the fourth quarter, they give up a safety as well and end up losing by 9.
And that's
But
what I
they
get for
represented
not
themselves
listening.
very well down there and played well. That's a very tough team at Gulf Shores. That's a big 6A public school out of Mobile, Alabama, and they're good.
Yeah, Cooper.
Yeah. That's what I get for not listening to my discernment. No disrespect to Park Lane, but I had a small feeling that my fellow Louisville native, Mark Hudspeth, would be able to get the job done. But hey, I felt like, man, I'm being too different. I'm making picks these other guys aren't. Brookhaven's already a stretch. I don't want to pick Park Lane and get flamed for not picking the Mississippi team. And then the Mississippi team, couldn't get it done over in Alabama. So, but it's okay.
Yeah, Spence.
Yeah, I was just going to say, 2 good buddies of mine, Mark Hudspeth, played with him for 3 years at Delta State. And then Ron Rushing was my room dog at the All-Star game and stayed good friends with him still now. And but I'll tell you this about Mark Hudspeth. Mark Hudspeth will win at all cost. It doesn't matter what it takes. He's going to win wherever he is, whatever he's doing. That's been his mentality since I was a freshman and got to know him at Delta State.
Yeah, I felt like that Park Lane Gulf Shores game was a toss-up from the beginning, but the Heritage game was the one that really surprised me. I thought that Heritage was going to have all that offensive firepower and just didn't seem like they could get things going this week, and that was the game that really cost us all. But there's the overalls there. The weekly pick'em contest: Cliff 4 for 8, Coop 3 for 8, Lee 4 for 8, and our guest last week, Robbie, was 3 for 8 as well. So there's actually a little error. No, that is right. 3 for 8. So yeah, 2 3 for 8s, 2 4 for 8. So 50% was winning the thing this week. But we're going to keep up with that all season as the season goes along.
Well, this portion of Varsity Voices brought to you by Oxford Falls. If you're finishing up your recipe for a marinade or a sauce, you need some help with salad dressings and things like that, it's Oxford Falls, bringing Mississippi flavor straight to your kitchen. You can order online at theoxfordfalls.com. That's the word "the" in their website, theoxfordfalls.com, and enjoy free shipping if you spend $100 or more at Oxford Falls. And we thank them for being a proud partner of Varsity Voices. Now let's look at some games coming up in the 1A. The Rebels out of Humphreys Academy will be visiting Briarfield Academy this Friday night, Cooper. And what do you see in that game coming up?
Briarfield's coming off a tough loss. Humphreys coming off of, some big wins. Humphreys dominant win over Newton. And I think Humphreys is just establishing themselves as the team in 1A. I got Humphreys over Briarfield. Are we going both picks at one time, or are we each doing one and then each do another one?
Go ahead and do both your picks.
All right, Tunica, another talented team going against Deer Creek. Deer Creek, I don't think they're going to have what it takes to beat Tunica. I think Tunica is going to go out there, and I think they're going to get the win over Deer Creek. So I got Humphreys and Tunica.
So put me down for Humphreys and Tunica. Also, the visitors in both of those 1A matchups, I think they started out very good this past Friday night and can keep that momentum going for week 2.
Go ahead, Spence.
I got Humphreys over Briarfield, even though I think that's going to be a tight game. Briarfield beat Deer Creek last week, 36-0. But I still think Humphreys has enough, and I'm going to go with Tunica over Deer Creek.
Well, to keep it from being a clean sweep, I am going to switch one. I'm taking Tunica. I like the Blue Devils up in Tunica, but in the Battle of the Rebels, Humphreys versus Briarfield, I'm going to take the boys from over in Louisiana. I think Briarfield is going to pick things up this year, and I think Briarfield's got a chance to go up there. I mean, I know it's McClendon coaching up there, does a good job with those Humphreys Academy Rebels, but I think Briarfield's primed to make some noise. So I'll go Briarfield and Tunica are my picks for that game.
Well, that sounds good as we move along. And other 2A action, Madison St. Joe and Greenville St. Joe are going to be playing this Friday night in a battle of two teams that aren't just an average Joe. I like the home team in this one. Cliff, where do you weigh in on this Madison and Greenville?
Well, go ahead and give us your Winona Marshall pick before we move along, Lee.
We almost forgot that Marshall's hosting Winona this Friday night. I'm going with the home team, Marshall Academy.
So Lee has got which St. Joe, Lee?
I've got Greenville. I've got
That's
the
what I
home
thought
team.
you said. That's what I thought you said. Greenville St. Joe. I like that in the average Joe comment up there. I'll go ahead and make my picks next. I'm going to pick Greenville St. Joe in that first game in the Battle of the Catholic Schools. And in that Winona Marshall game, I think that that the Winona Christian Stars have got enough to get it done over Marshall. And got a soft spot in my heart for Winona. So I'm picking Winona and Greenville St. Joe.
Now,
yeah, I'll make the next one on this.
Soft spot, or do you really, really think they're going to win?
No, I'm really pulling for the Stars. I think the Stars have a shot.
All right.
I'll go ahead and go. This first matchup, it's the only game in the state where, you can have a Hail Mary before the game in the locker room and you can have a Hail Mary to end the game. But there's not going to be a Hail Mary needed in this game unless it's Madison St. Joe trying to get anything to happen for them. But, luckily anyway, we won't need a Hail Mary because Greenville St. Joe is going to win this one by 21+. They're going to absolutely dominate the Bruins, and Bruins are going to be out of luck. Winona and Marshall here. Cliff, I'm with you with the Stars. I think the Stars are on the rise, no pun intended. And Marshall, they're a team. They're gonna need this loss either to get better or to drop down to the number 9 spot to get in the Division II playoffs, if we're still doing that. But I think Winona wins this one handedly either way.
It's going to play a role in that PowerPoint formula, you think?
What did you say, Lee?
I said that's going to factor in later on when we discuss the PowerPoint ratings and the playoff picture.
Oh yeah, I was kind of taking a shot. I'll apologize for that, but that's only because Marshall fans yelled at me in the press box thinking I was doing the review at the state championship, but I was just getting ready to call the Leake Tri-County game, which Leake won, by the way. Cliff and Spence.
Wow,
they thought you were the enemy, huh?
Yeah, Spence. I know who's picking last in 3A. So, all right, Spence, go ahead. What are your picks?
So I got Greenville St. Joe. I agree with you guys. There's just going to be too much for Madison St. Joe. And I'm going with Winona because I don't have a soft spot for Marshall since that deal they pulled last year.
Nobody's pulling any punches in this section, so that'll shove us on a little. Let's go ahead and move to 3A. Let's advance on to the 3A games now.
Well, you could see Greenville with the fist clenched already there.
Yeah. So Brookhaven, Silliman, and Heritage, Capaya. Shepard, you can go ahead and go first this time.
I'm Tri-County played Silliman years ago, and they kind of had a tough, kind of real physical type team. And them who did they beat 14-7 last week?
ACCS.
ACCS. I think and you know, from what I've seen out of Brookhaven the last several years, they're not as physical. So I'm going to go with Silliman. With the, I don't know if it'd be an upset or not, but yeah, I'm going to go with Silliman over Brookhaven. And then I think the Heritage Kapai game, I think Heritage is going to kind of bounce back a little bit because everybody's talking about them. But I think Kapai is still too much. So I'm going with Silliman and Kapai.
Okay. Cooper?
Well, I would be surprised if they did not come out with a little chip on their shoulder. I'm talking about Heritage Academy on Friday night, Cooper.
Yeah, so Brookhaven and Silliman. So I don't talk about it much on here, but so I've served the past few summers with a camp called Fuge Camps. And I've made a lot of friends in this camp, worked with a lot of people. Good friend of mine, her fiance coaches at Brookhaven. Another good friend of mine, he coaches at Silliman. So I got two people that I know coaching against each other in this game. And I've talked to my friend Jared at Silliman about their team, and they've got a lot of athletes. I think they are going to be a hard-nosed football team. Brookhaven, a lot of people were talking that they ain't still got it, but they showed it last week with their big win over Bowling Green. I think we're to the point to where we realize I think that Bowling Green win I'm not going to call it a fluke, but might not have been as big as we thought it was. I think Silliman does beat Brookhaven. And then with Heritage and Kapai, I agree completely with Spence. Heritage, they're going to be ticked off. They're going to want us to stop talking about them. But Kapai is just going to be a little too much. So I think Kapai wins this one by 1 or 2 scores.
Well, put me down for Silliman, the home team. It might be good luck that I pick against Brookhaven again for those Cougars this Friday night. And Kapai Academy, I think they'll have some momentum after that week 1 win, and it might be a good time to play Heritage Academy. They may be down a little bit. They may be hurting a little bit. Sometimes you can go out and lose a game the way they did to Pillow Academy, and it feels like you lost 2 or 3 games instead of just 1. And I think that might be a little bit of Heritage's mindset or their emotions this Friday night after that big wake-up call in the Pillow Academy game. What do you think, Cliff?
And so what was your pick? Which one did you pick?
I picked Kapai Academy.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Both home teams, Silliman and Kapai.
Well, I'm going to be the odd man out. I'm taking both visitors. I'm taking Brookhaven, getting it done at Silliman. I think Brookhaven proved something the other night against a pretty good Bowling Green squad, and I'm gonna say that Brookhaven's going to take care of business at Sullivan, and I think this is the week Heritage gets that offense rolling down versus Kapai Academy, and I'm going with Heritage Academy. So I'm going to be the odd man out. Everybody else went Sullivan, Kapai. I'm going Brookhaven Heritage.
Yeah, and you're going to be 2-8 after this week too.
Maybe. We'll see.
So 4A games to watch. We've got Columbia High School, not to be confused with Columbia Academy. Hartfield's taking on Columbia, a team in the state championship game last year. And we've got JA taking on a big powerhouse team out of Mobile, Alabama, McGill-Tulane. Catholic School will be traveling up to Jackson as the Raiders try to go 3-0 on the season. I liked Hartfield, but Columbia is going to be a tough draw on the road. I'm not sure who to pick. I would like you guys to weigh in and do your picks, and maybe it'll influence me one way or another. Cooper, we'll start with you.
All right, I'll go ahead and start. Yeah. Hartfield and Columbia High School. I'm going to be quick when I say this. There was a Twitter post earlier this week that's been circling around. Said something about MAIS or private school football that I'm not going to repeat on this podcast, but it was an ignorant statement. It was just somebody who simply does not know football and does not understand football and hasn't watched MAIS football. So I'm not going to blame the guy. It's okay. He just doesn't understand. But I think this is one of those games, Hartfield and Columbia, two really good teams in their respective divisions, conferences, whatever you want to call it. But I think this is a game where the public school team gets it done. That's no hate to Hartfield, but Columbia is one of those really, really, really good teams. Hartfield, I don't think they're going to have quite the talent this year as they did a year ago. And I think Columbia pulls this one out as the reigning MHSAA 4A state champions. When it comes to McGill, Tulane, and Jackson Academy, that's really exciting to me because there's A.J. Pauley, over at McGill-Tulane. He is a 3-star Alabama commit on the defensive line. So he's going to be matching up with Caden Moss in this Jackson Academy offensive line. So I think that's going to be really exciting. This guy, Paulie, he's an Alabama commit, 6'5", 265, a 3-star. And I think this will be a really good football game. But I think Jackson Academy gets the win. I think Jackson Academy goes out there and wins by 10 to 14 points. I think the JA O-line is able to hold down that defensive line at McGill-Tulane. I think JA gets it done.
How about you, Spence? How do you see these two games?
You know, I don't know much about Columbia High School, but I have seen Hartfield, the highlights of this year, and then seen them play in the last few years. They don't seem to have the personnel that they've had the last several years. So I'm going to go with Columbia High School in that game, and then I'm going to go with JA in the other game. McGill-Tulane better have more than just one. If they're going to get through that line for JA, because my gracious, that looks like an SEC line that JA has, and they have running backs, they have receivers, and they got a quarterback that can spin it. So JA is my pick.
So it's going to be Alabama versus Ohio State in this one, at Jackson Academy with the home field advantage and a lot of momentum, as we mentioned, getting over 100 points already in their first two games. I'm going to go with the JA Raiders as well, and also the home team in the Columbia Hartfield Academy. I'm going to go with Columbia. That slow start by Hartfield the other night against Greenville, Washington concerns me a little bit for this Hartfield team this year, and I like Columbia High School to win at home, and the same for Jackson Academy Friday night.
And Cooper, you picked JA, correct?
I did, yes.
Okay, so this scares me to death because, I've already taken the big risk in 3A, but I'm going to leave it as a sweep. Every one of us picking Columbia High School and Jackson Academy, and surely we're not going to take 2 L's again this week in 4A all the way across the board like we did last week, because this is the only classification every one of us have picked the same 2 teams again.
Well, you're not going to jinx us by saying that, but you already put it out there in the universe. So we may both go 0 and we may all go 0 and 2 in those 2 picks, but they're both really good teams in those matchups. There's Park Lane and Jackson Prep going to be seeing a lot of red, white, and blue in this one over in Flowood. This is our game of the week, I believe, this Friday night, as Park Lane tries to recover after the loss to Gulf Shores, and Jackson Prep tries to go 2-0 to start the season. Again, Jackson Prep very impressive against a team from Alabama this past Friday night, but Park Lane, they're bringing some talent to Flowood as well, and this one's a hard game to pick. But I'm going to go with the Park Lane Pioneers in this one over Jackson Prep to bounce back after that loss down in Mobile, Alabama last Friday night. Cooper, how do you see this one?
Lee, I really don't like that you made that pick of Park Lane over Prep. And you want me to tell you why?
Sure.
Because I was really hoping to be the odd man out here and really shock y'all next week when I picked the Park Lane Pioneers to get the win over Jackson Prep. I think this is going to be an incredible matchup with these quarterbacks, Luke Essery and Reese Robinson. Man, these guys are just going to be absolutely going at it. But I think the Pioneers get the win over Jackson Prep, and this raises the question, will this do enough? Can Park Lane keep it up after that to put Prep in the Division II playoff? Or no, they're doing 8-8. My bad again. I messed up. See, I'm getting used to this here. See, I messed up. But hey, never mind. I think Park Lane beats Prep.
We'll give you some grace there. And for those of you who don't know that much about Park Lane Academy and their quarterback, Reese Robinson, he's only in the 9th grade. And a starter for Park Lane. He went to a Tulane passing camp this past June and was so impressive that he got an offer from Tulane after just throwing the ball around the yard a little bit down there in New Orleans, and got their attention and got an offer. And they didn't really throw the ball that much against Gulf Shores last Friday night, but I think they're going to air it out a little bit this Friday night and try to put some more points on the scoreboard clip. How do you see this one?
Well, I'm going to go with Jackson Prep. I saw a very young Jackson Prep team last year that got so much better as the year went on. They've got another year of experience, a lot of returning starters. I think Jackson Prep's going to take care of business against Park Lane.
Spence, what do you think of this red, white, and blue matchup?
I'm so torn on this one. Park Lane beats Jackson Prep last year for the first time, and golly, I have no idea how long it had been. Ron Rushing down there, man, is just doing the deal. He is a heck of a good coach. Seems to have the pieces in place. Is the quarterback a little bit too young to realize what kind of atmosphere and the kind of game he's getting into? Maybe not though. Jackson Prep, like Cliff said, extremely young last year, returned almost everybody this year. Being at Prep and being that Prep lost, gosh, dog, I hate to pick against my buddy Ron Rushing, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Prep with Cliff.
All right, so here's the number, Spence. So before last year's win, wow, this is unbelievable, guys. Before last year's win over Jackson Prep, 18-7 in 2025, the last time Park Lane beat Jackson Prep was in 1995, 6-0.
Wow.
Yep.
Back in the Caruth days at Park Lane.
Yeah, I'm trying to look on this list and see. I believe they've played every year. So you do the math there from 2025. So that's almost 30 years, 29 years, something like that.
That's saying a trend has been established.
Yep.
It's been dominant. You can
But
call
I will say
matchups a rivalry, but when it's that one-sided, it's just you're talking about an abusive relationship.
I will say though that it would not surprise me to see Park Lane beat Jackson Prep.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up.
Game of the week brought to you by the Army National Guard. You have to always be ready, just like when the whistle blows on Friday night and it's time to tee it up. Army National Guard is always ready, 24/7. You can discover how good you can serve right now with the Mississippi Army National Guard. And we thank them so much for sponsoring Varsity Voices. And before we get out of here, we have to salute our player of the week. And he comes from the school in Pelahatchie, Mississippi. East Rankin Academy, 282 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns on only 10 carries. If I'm doing the math right, that's averaging 28.2 yards per carry, unless I'm looking at it wrong, Cooper. He put on a show, didn't he?
Yeah, I sent y'all in the group chat, the top 5 players, top 5 performances to vote on a player of the week. And then as soon as I sent it, Jared sent us a text and said one guy, and I went back and kind of looked because I kind of skimmed over him when I sent him. And I said, holy crap, why did I even send 4 extra guys? You're telling me 28.2 yards per carry, a touchdown every 2 carries. The only thing that was stopping Ethan Butler the other night was this thing called the end zone.
The goal
he
line,
was
that's right.
Dominant. 282 yards, 10 carries. We saw Eric Beasley have 300 yards last week, and that was on 18 carries, and that is not knocking Eric Beasley's performance.
Hey, who was
oh my
that
gosh,
Cooper? Who do you have? Who do you have all those yards against?
Oh, the reigning 3A state champions. That's it. that won 25-24 last year off of a game-winning field goal against Tri-County.
Wait. That was Mount
September 25th. Mark it right now.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna bring us back to reality, guys. Instead of fussing about the matchup, that's an impressive performance by that young man. And I'm gonna go back to what I said when we looked at our games that we were looking forward to this week. A player like that can change the complexion of a season for a team, and this might be just what East Rankin needs to have that breakout season this year. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be really paying close attention to those guys over in Pelahatchie this year.
Absolutely.
Well, we got to keep it in perspective, though. That team they played, I believe that was their first game in the history of the school for Mount Zion, and they didn't have much to slow down East Rankin on Friday night. Varsity Voices brought to you by C Spire. Stay connected all season long and stay connected to us. cspire.com is where you can find out more if you want your internet connection to be spot on all season long. Cooper Sanders, Cliff Barker, and Spence Shepard, thank you so much for being a great guest this week, Spence. It's been a long time since we've crossed paths, and it sure was good to see you and hear you tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. Enjoyed it as always.
All right, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for tuning in, and share our podcast with a friend, Varsity Voices. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week.